Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to Revelation Studios. Today's topic is the review of the Halloween franchise. Booyaka! John Carpenter's most feared and most successful franchise ever made out of all the films he's done. Obviously, it consists of 11 films, novels, comic books, and believe it or not, there's a video game. It was on the Atari 2600. It's kind of a very shitty game if you ask me. If you watch the Angry Video Game Nerd, you'll see a lot about that. And of course, other merchandise. The film primarily focus is on Michael Myers, who we all know as the most notorious slasher that was committed to a sanitarium as a child at 6 years old, the murder of his sister Judith Myers. When then 15 years later, he would escape, stalk, and kill babysitters in a fictional town called Haddonfield in my state of Illinois. His killings occur during the holiday of Halloween, in which the film primarily takes place in the original film of 1978. Also comprised by John Carpenter and Deborah Hill, the two main writers of the film. But Carpenter was the one who directed it. It was also an inspiration off of the most fan-favorite horror film, Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho and Bob Clark's Black Christmas. Three of the top actors of the film are Jamie Lee Curtis, Donald Pleasance, and at the time there was one more, the third one. She slips my mind every time. Oh man, she slips my mind every time. At the tip of my tongue. She played Annie Brackett. I think it was Nancy Wallace, I believe. She was the one that played it. And PJ Souls, who played the totally Linda, the one that was really freaking annoying. So during that film, Michael Myers was played by Nick Castle. He did a fantastic job with that. Especially when he did the choke kill. He grabbed Bob by the neck, hang him up against the wall, and just stabbed him with the knife, and he got stuck to the wall. That was pretty insane. During that film, it was Donald Pleasance, I think it was his 5th or 6th film that he did, his first horror film. He plays a psychiatrist, Dr. Samuel Loomis, who becomes obsessed with Michael at the age of 6 when he kills his sister Judith. Now, bear in mind, when this film was made, there was a lot of controversy of how gory and how violent they wanted it. They wanted to keep it within the R rating. They didn't want to go and change it to an A rating, which at the time the A rating was rated A for adult. So they even had that rating for video games. Now, they could have made it an NC-17, but it didn't even make that. It made the rated R, so they tried to make it as gruesome as possible, but within the limits of trajectory. So, you know, there wasn't as much blood as a matter of fact, there was no blood. No blood really appeared until later, which we'll get to. But Donald Pleasance played Dr. Samuel Loomis, who was obsessed with Michael from the age of 6, and literally just obsessed over the fact that he was evil, pure evil. Did not want him released to society, watched him constantly, said that Michael would sit there in a room looking at the wall, looking past the wall, looking on that night, Halloween night, the night he escapes at the age of 21. As you can see in the scene, I think it's about 15 minutes into the film, where he arrives at Smith's Grove, Warren County Sanitarium, and you see all these people dressed in white wandering around in the rain. Why? Well, Michael broke out of his cell, let all the other patients out. And once, you know, Dr. Loomis is distracted with the phone, and the nurse that was driving him there had her guard down, Michael hops onto the car, breaks a freaking car window with his bare hands. His bare hands. The nurse, with fear, jumps out of the car. Michael hops in the car, GTAs the hell out of that car, and drives away and begins his journey to Haddonfield. We're on his way. Stops at a rest stop where there was a mechanic just leaving the Rabbit and Red strip club. kills him, steals his coveralls, arrives in Haddonfield hours later, breaks into the local hardware store, steals a rope, couple of knives, and the iconic William Shatner Michael Myers mask. Now, when that idea with the whole mask concept, that was Deborah Hill's idea, but John Carpenter wanted the mask to have an expressionless face, like no emotion, no expression, just a pale blank, like something scary that is going to basically, you shut your eyes, you're going to see it in your sleep kind of thing. So what they did was they took the Captain Kirk mask from Star Trek, completely spray painted it white, pale white, cut the holes a little bit bigger around the eyes, and pretty much dyed the hair on it. So they've had different concepts of the mask over the years, and we'll get into that as we progress through the review. But as later in the film comes about, we get introduced to Laurie Strode, who is played by Jamie Lee Curtis, the Scream Queen, as she is quoted. And she's sitting in a classroom in her social studies class having I think it's that or Greek mythology, I'm not sure, but I think it was a Greek mythology class where they're talking about fate. And Michael she peers out the window, and out of the corner of her eye sees Michael standing there outside the window, staring at her from across the street next to his car. She looks away, answers the teacher's questions, looks back, Michael's gone, which, gives him the quote-unquote name, The Shape. Trying to catch my breath here, guys. I'm talking a little fast here. Later on, we get introduced to her friends, Linda, Annie. Linda is very annoying. She says the word totally at least 200 times in the film. Wasn't feeling all that bad when she met her demise later in the film because she was so freaking annoying. And Annie is pretty much she's the horny one, the one that likes to get into trouble. But her dad's the sheriff, so, there you go. Your dad's the sheriff, so what do? You get yourself into trouble. And they're walking home from school, talking about their get-together. Annie and Laurie are babysitters, so they get caught they're pretty much caught up with babysitting for the night, while Linda pretty much gets to do whatever the hell she wants. She plans on going over to the house that Annie's babysitting to go hang out with Annie and her boyfriend, Bob. Annie's kind of bummed because her boyfriend, Paul, got caught throwing eggs and soaping people's windows, and so he got grounded. So she's pretty much bummed out, so she pretty much invites Linda and Bob over to come hang out, keep her company, while she watches little Lindsay Wallace. Later throughout the night, Laurie goes home, looks out of her window, and Michael is staring at her from the neighbor's backyard through the laundry that's pretty much hanging there on the clothesline, and she freaks out. Answers the phone, looks back outside, Michael's gone again. So again, the Shape on the move again, watching her, stalking her, but not doing anything about it just yet. Phone rings, obscene chewing on the line. She thinks it's the guy that was watching her through the window. She hangs up. Phone rings again. She picks it up. Who is it? Annie. Why'd you hang up on me? That was an obscene phone call. I was chewing. I had my mouth full. Why the hell would you call somebody while you're chewing? Dumbass. Fast forward a little bit more. Annie picks up Laurie in her mom's car. They're driving up to the Doyle's house and the Wallace house. Who do they see on the way up there? Annie's dad. Someone broke into the hardware store. Typical freaking sheriff, old dude wants to go and blame kids for stealing from a hardware store. Let me tell you something, Pops. Nobody's out to steal hammers and screwdrivers and all that stuff as a kid. If you're a kid, you're robbing candy stores and toy stores. Just saying. In that process, I think he smells the weed that they were smoking in the car, so he kind of lets them go do about their thing. Doesn't say much because he doesn't want to embarrass his daughter and her friend. They drive off. Who else comes to jump up? Dr. Samuel Loomis rolls right up Asked to speak with the sheriff. It's urgent. Gotta talk to you about something. Before that scene takes place, I kind of skipped over one. Dr. Loomis is at a phone booth where he discovers the body of the dead mechanic that Michael killed for the coveralls in the brush. Calls to warn the sheriff, hey, he's coming to Haddonfield. You got to be ready for him. Nobody believes him. Oh, well, your funeral. Hangs up the phone. But Dr. Loomis gets to Haddonfield, talks to the sheriff, lets him know what's up. Fast forward into the movie. Laurie and Annie are talking in the car about the school dance that's coming up and how Laurie's got this crush on this dude named Ben Tramer, who we'll discuss later in the film. As soon as they get to their destination, Michael followed them all the way up there. I saw it throughout the movie. I don't know if anybody noticed, but they were followed the entire time. Creepy music was playing. Dun, 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 dun. I'm just using the accelerated version. They arrive. Michael pops out, stands behind a friggin' tree as Annie's walking inside, the Wallace's house, saying hi to the Wallaces as they're leaving to go about their night. And nobody sees this dude. That's what I've noticed in the movies. Nobody sees this freaking dude. He's literally sitting there just watching, staring through your freaking house behind a freaking tree. And you see people walking on the sidewalk, walking past, they don't even see him. So he must really be the shape of Halloween. No one can really see him. He's constantly incognito, but he's got literally the most standout outfit in the entire movie. He's got the coveralls, pale freaking white mask, creepy, just creepy appearance, yet nobody sees him. Anywho, moving on. Next scene comes up, Laurie's in there with little Tommy Doyle making popcorn, carving up jack-o'-lanterns, watching horror films. Little Tommy, is freaking out because his buddies, the kids at school picked on him, knocked him over, made him break his jack-o'-lantern. Well, he fell on it and he crushed it. And believe it or not, those kids that were bullying him ran away after that. One of those kids runs right into Michael, smack dead right into Michael Myers' ball sack. And all Michael did was kind of grab the kid by the arms, pretty much as if he was saying, watch where you're going, and lets him freaking walk away. So, that just pretty much shows you. Michael Myers doesn't kill kids. Anyway. He pretty much follows Tommy, I guess, to find out where he lives, so he knows exactly where to find Laurie, which kind of makes sense in a way, considering he followed them all the way to the Doyle residence. Tommy's freaked out by what those kids says and consistently is asking Laurie, what's the boogeyman? She says, there's no such thing. Bullshit! Simply because this guy's literally out here killing everybody. Now, not gonna lie, this film in itself makes a whole lot of sense based on the events that are taking place over time. Up until she says there's no such thing as the boogeyman. Well, this guy's literally creeping around like the boogeyman. Nobody else could see him except his victims, if that makes sense. Otherwise, any other time he's hiding and he's out in the open, no one can see him unless you're one of the victims. That's what I've noticed. Moving forward, Annie calls Laurie because she's bored, trying to tell her, you need a boyfriend, you need to get laid, you need to get some dick, all that good stuff. And in the process of all that, Laurie's being stubborn, wants to be pretty much a cock block, and doesn't want to basically, pop the cherry at 17, which, most chicks back in the day didn't want to do. So, they're talking, and Annie makes a freaking fool of herself. It spills butter all over her clothes, and basically has to get naked because she's got literally a big old butter stain on her shirt. Michael's in the freaking window creeping, looking at her in her underwear, and then in the process purposely drops a glass plant so Annie would look out the window and feel creeped out. Family dog Lester walks in, starts barking his ass off. So she puts him outside, and in the process of that starts barking again because Michael's out there creeping in the window. Michael finally gets pissed off and says, you know what, fuck this dog. Picks up Lester, squeezes him and crushes him, completely destroys the dog. Moving forward again, Dr. Samuel Loomis pulls up with Sheriff Brackett at the Myers house, creepiest house in Haddonfield, at 45 Lambkin Lane. It's actually an actual museum in some town in Ohio. That's where the film was made, in Ohio somewhere. And you could actually see, the house is actually considered a museum, and it's a You can actually go there, pay for admission, actually tour the house and all that cool stuff. So you can check that out. And the first thing that, Dr. Loomis asked the sheriff, anybody live here? Nah, not since 1963 when it happened, which means that from the night he killed his sister, no one wants to live in that house. Every kid in the town thinks the house is haunted. And Dr. Loomis says, you may be right. They may be right. They walk inside. They're looking around. And Sheriff Brackett sees some sort of mutilated corpse. And he's like, what is that? He's like, it's a dog. It says it's still warm. Which means it was a freshly killed dog, still warm, which means it hasn't been dead long. And Dr. Loomis says he got hungry, which means Michael Myers ate the dog. Which means that dude actually eats, maybe sleeps, regardless how many times we just see him walking around killing people endlessly with no sleep, no shower, no nothing. We know this dude don't shower because he gets dirty as shit in the movies. But he actually got hungry and ate a dog. Moving forward, they tore the house a little bit more. Michael Myers pretty much is nowhere to be found, so they're going through the house, making sure, there's nobody there. Michael isn't in the house. They get upstairs, and Sheriff Brackett tells Dr. Loomis he seems just straight up scared. Simply because Dr. Loomis is carrying a gun with a permit, and he admits to the sheriff, yes, I am afraid. And how he met Michael 15 years ago, was told there was nothing left. No reason, no conscience, no understanding, even in the rudimentary sense of life or death, good or evil, right or wrong. That he met this 6-year-old child with this blank, pale, emotionless face, the blackest eyes, the devil's eyes. He spent 8 years trying to reach him and another 7 trying to keep him locked up because he realized what was living behind that boy's eyes was purely and simply evil. Pure evil, he thinks Michael Myers is, but the sheriff is literally saying he's just a man. But Samuel Loomis says, no, he's not a man. That he thinks he's been at that house once tonight. He thinks that he'll come back and he's going to wait for Michael to come back. The sheriff thinks he should notify the radio and the television, let everybody know what's going on. The sheriff and Dr. Loomis is like, nope, keep it on hush, hush, hush. They're going to be looking at him at every house, every backyard. You don't want that. It's going to cause a panic, and, they're never going to find him. Moving forward, Michael just starts hacking, slashing everybody. First place, he starts with Annie. Annie gets a call from her boyfriend, Paul, saying, like, hey, you got to come pick me up. I'm going to sneak out the crib. She hops in the car. Little does she know, the windows are all fogged up. She thinks maybe it's from the dew factor because it's kind of cold, it's Halloween season. But little does she know, Michael Myers is hidden in the back seat, laying down, breathing heavy in that mask, fogging up the windows, comes up, starts strangling her, stabs her in the throat. First kill, Annie Brackett, dead. Linda arrives at the house. Turns out to find out Annie's not there. Probably still want to go pick up Paul. Her and her boyfriend Bob, they start doing the oopa-doopa on the couch. They bring it upstairs, doing the oopa-doopa on the bed. She wants a beer, sends Bob downstairs to get the beer. Bob gets the beer. He thinks he's getting pranked by Linda, calls her an asshole, says, all right, come on out, opens up the other door. Booyaka, there goes Michael Myers, grabs him by the throat, starts choking him, holds him up to the wall, stabs him in the chest with a knife. There you go, big glasses, dumbass, you're dead. Comes back upstairs with a sheet over his head looking like a Halloween ghost with 2 eyeballs cut out with Bob's glasses on to kind of like keep the incognito going. Linda's sitting there like a dumbass. Cute Bob, real cute. What's the matter? Can I get you a ghost, Bob? And then flashes him her little pancake titties. Which, throughout the entire film, that was an obligatory tit shot. Just saying. But she ain't got no big old bitties. PJ Soul's got no big old biggies. Then she says, come on, where's my beer? Gets mad, hops on the phone, try to call Lori, try to find out where Annie is, because, their night's going nowhere. She's getting bored. And all you hear is that creepy sound of that music start playing. Dun, 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 dun. And then, right there, as soon as Lori picks up the phone, starts strangling Linda with the phone cord, strangles her, is like, oh, and, Lori thinks it's another prank by Annie. Oh, I get your famous chewing, now I get your famous squealing. and she just keeps on choking, choking, choking. And all of a sudden, she's dead, and Laurie starts to get concerned that maybe, you know, it's a sick joke. And then Michael picks up the phone and is listening to Laurie's voice on the phone. And that's when Laurie kind of gets, at that point, more concerned. Leaves the house with little Lindsay Wallace and Tommy Doyle asleep. Goes to check out the house. And in the process, finds her friend Annie dead in the bed with Judith Meyer's tombstone hanging above that. Laurie freaks out, winds up in the hallway. And there's Michael lurking in the shadows in a closet, an open door closet. You can see it was all blank, and then out of nowhere, this pale white face appears, stabs her in the shoulder. She flips over the banister, down the stairs she goes. Pretty much throughout the rest of the film, it's pretty much Michael chasing her. Dr. Loomis finds Michael's car, tells the sheriff he's here. You go around the front. I was like, you go around the back of the houses, I'm going to watch the front. Goes into the Wallace house as Laurie's getting choked by Michael, shoots him 6 times. Out the window, he falls. Boom! And Michael's laying there on the ground. Laurie looks at Dr. Loomis and says, was that the boogeyman? Dr. Loomis, with such passion, says, as a matter of fact, it was. Walks back out to the banister, looks down below. Michael's corpse is gone. That fades to black into the second film, which brings us to Halloween 2. This film was actually apprised in 1989, which was was it 19? I think it was 1989. Sorry. 1981 is when this one came out, which is a couple years after the first one was. We're going to blow this up a little bit so everybody can see. This was more of the night that he came home. Pretty much picks up where the first film left off after Michael was shot out that window. Dr. Loomis runs downstairs. You know, there's a big imprint of Michael's body on the ground. He feels around, and there's a bunch of blood from the gunshot wound. So obviously Michael bleeds. That's what he knows. He's human enough to where he bleeds, but he knows he's not human. He's evil. Nosy-ass neighbor runs out the back. What's going on out here? Dr. Loomis states, call the police. Tell the sheriff I shot him. Dumbass neighbor. Who? Tell him that he's still on the loose. Is this some kind of joke? Been trick-or-treated to death tonight. And like straight up savage, Dr. Loomis is like, you don't know what death is. That's when the intro music starts playing. It's kind of like more of the same film, but with like a different sound effect. And instead of like, it's more of like this soundboard mixer slash, the hell do they call that thing? It's like a mix of a soundboard. A soundboard and like a piano, but it's like that scary piano that you hear in like Dracula's house. So I forget what they call that thing, but it was a pretty good mix. They have a soundtrack for the film. It's a really good soundtrack, especially if you're listening to the Suite A through D. No, it's Suite A through E soundtrack. Really good soundtrack. Highly recommend. Really good. After the film's intro starts, you see Michael walking through the alleyways of these houses, and you hear the sheriff driving around the corner, and here comes Dr. Loomis. I shot him 6 times, Sheriff. I shot him 6 times. I shot him in the heart. And the sheriff's like, he couldn't have gotten very far. Dr. Loomis again, shot him 6 times. This guy, I'm telling you, he's not human. Michael Myers pretty much is walking through the alley. Sheriff and Dr. Loomis drive away. Michael's walking through this backyard. Comes up to this house with this old couple the Elrods are living in. She's making her husband a freaking ham sandwich while he's watching Night of the Living Dead on the TV. Michael needs a new knife considering he shot out the window and the other one went flying somewhere. No, wait, Laurie stabbed him with the other knife in the closet in the first film. I missed some pieces, but only because I want to keep this thing flowing. I'm not going to go through every scene of the movie. That would just be pure anarchy. Anyway, he arrives at the Elrod's house. She's making the sandwich. Asks her husband, you want some mayonnaise on your sandwich? How about some mustard? Asks him if you're asleep again. Susie's got her back turned. Michael walks through the back door up to where the sandwich is being made, grabs the knife. He's bleeding, obviously, from his hands. Blood drips onto the ham sandwich. And then a news bulletin goes up saying that the police of Haddonfield have just made a grisly discovery of 3 bodies in the upstairs bedroom of this house. As the news report goes on, the news report kind of ends with the mental patient escaped last night from the Smiths Warren County Sanitarium. He's now believed to be at large in Haddonfield. This is Robert Mundy, live. And then Light of the Living Dead goes back on. The old lady's walking backwards with her hand kind of reaching back, and as soon as she turns around, she sees blood all over the ham sandwich. I guess she sees Michael Myers' face, and I guess he petrifies her and then walks out the door. And then the other nosy neighbor, Alice, walks out, is pretty much asking if Mrs. Alright is okay, because I guess the husband has a history of beating his wife whenever he seems to be picked on by her. And she's talking to, I guess, her lesbian girlfriend on the phone, because I guess she's like, my parents are gone. And her friend is telling her how these teenagers were killed in Haddonfield, and it's on the radio. She listens to the radio. She can't believe it. And then she hears, Michael being a creep, doesn't even knock on people, just walks through the front door. I want to know how these people in Haddonfield just leave their doors unlocked for anybody just to walk in. Then again, I think their door was kind of wide open to begin with. Anyway, he walks in, he drops something. Alice hears it. Who is it? Like a dumbass. Who is it? And then walks right into the foyer. Michael jumps out of some sort of trench in the house. I don't know if it's like a dip that's in the house or if there was like a staircase down there or a small little like 2 or 3 staircase thing. I guess he was hiding behind something. Jumps up, stabs her in the heart. You can see that's where I was saying before, guys. When this film was made, it's 1981. They wanted more blood, more gore. So they got the approval to have a little bit more of a gory, bloody film to keep it a somewhat of an R rating, which was totally fine. He jumps up, stabs Alice in the heart. You can see the blood literally spray out of her chest onto her face or her chin. You kind of get a good glimpse of Michael's face at that point. You kind of see like the terribleness, the pain in his face, the dirt, and all that stuff, the grime. Give me a second here. We'll do this quick offline thing real fast so I can kind of pull up a photo of it. I don't think there's a picture of it per se, but yeah, I can't even find one. Well, actually, I did. There you go. We'll grab that real quick. We're going to grab that real quick. No, we want that to save right into where we're at. So that way, anything that I add for this particular video will go directly in there. So there you go. Pretty much stabs her right in the freaking chest, and you can see the blood kind of spatter all over her chin and all that good stuff. So it was a pretty gory scene. That's when they decided to basically bring some gore into there. After that, that's when the ambulance arrives at the Doyle residence to pick Lori up. She'd been stabbed in the shoulder. She chipped her ankle falling down the stairs. And these 2 paramedics, one of them apparently knows her because she goes to school with his little brother. And the other one is pretty much just an arrogant piece of shit paramedic. They load her up in the ambulance, take her to Haddonfield Memorial Hospital. Michael is still on the loose. In the process, You know, the sheriff is arguing with Dr. Loomis, saying, like, you couldn't have shot him 6 times. And, you know, Dr. Loomis gets offended and says, you think I'm lying, Sheriff? And he's like, I think you missed him. No man could take 6 slugs. Well, Dr. Loomis put him in his place. So I'm telling you, this isn't a man. And you hear kids laughing, and all of a sudden, Dr. Loomis looks out the corner of his eye and sees a figure walking, tells him to slow down, look, look, look. And out there, you kind of see a guy walking with the Michael Myers mask. Now, here's the fuck up. Here's the fuck up, guys. Now, what pissed me off is how, like, they knew exactly what the description was of Michael in the film. They had the description of him. That's exactly how they freaking knew what he looked like. But as soon as Dr. Loomis tells him to slow down, he was in such a hurry to catch Michael, he wasn't paying any attention to the description that was given. But this is exactly the guy they were chasing. That doesn't look anything like Michael. Number one, the coverall. He's not wearing coveralls. He's wearing a freaking tracksuit jacket, the mask, and he's carrying a trick-or-treat bag. So that goes to tell you right there, that was just a regular teenage kid with the same mask. It was mistaken identity. They're chasing him with a gun. The sheriff knew it wasn't Michael because it didn't match the description. Tells him not to shoot, and out of nowhere, another cop crashes dead into this kid, slams him into a van that's parked in the middle of, it looks like it was a cul-de-sac, and then smacked into the van. The van explodes. The kid's dead on impact, set to flame. And Sheriff Brackett literally sits there, is asking Loomis, is it him? Is it him or not? And Dr. Loomis can't answer for sure if it's Michael. And they just let the dude toast. That's when Deputy Hunt rolls up and says, Lee, they found 3 bodies. Across the street from the Doyle house, 3 kids. Lee, one was Annie. They rush into the police car and drive off, leaving the kid there to freaking burn. Don't call the fire department. Just, you know, let the body toast, you know. You know, Halloween logic. Ambulance arrives at the hospital, and you see they go to this cutscene where this mom is arriving with her kid who's dressed as a pirate. Guess he was eating his candy apples, and I guess he came across some douchebag's house who put a razor blade in his candy apple because the kid is bleeding profusely out of his mouth. So there's his mom bringing him to the emergency room to get checked out with that. Sucks to be that kid. Pretty much the moral of the story of the entire movie is Michael Myers stalking Laurie Strode through the hospital of Haddonfield because he missed her the first time. Multiple kills. Kills in the process. 3 nurses, a paramedic, the security guard, a U.S. Marshal, gets shot 5 more times, gets set on fire by Dr. Loomis, who practically blows himself up in the end. Which leads into the next film, guys. I would rate this film number 2 as one of my number 2. Film number 1 is right now rated number 4. Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers. Why isn't there a 3? I'll explain why. There was a huge controversy between Deborah Hill and John Carpenter and Mustafa Akkad at the time when he was alive. And whether or not Halloween 3 should, you know, what they should try something different. So what they did was they started this concept with this film with killer masks. Masks that, when are worn by children, do these gruesome things to the bodies. I've seen that movie 3 times. It's called Halloween 3 Season of the Witch. It's a botchery, shitty, freaking product. I've never seen a product so shitty in my life. Like, I've seen some shitty movies in my time. But that one takes the cake. That one is rated very last. It's not even on the list. It wouldn't even make top 10 or 20. Which leads to Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers. Mustafa Akkad came to John Carpenter and said, we need to basically bring Michael Myers back. It was a high-demand product. Everybody wants him. Everybody loved it. The first two films were a huge success. And we need to do something about it. This film was reprised in 1988 and was written by Alan B. Elroy and directed by Dwight H. Little. Dwight H. Little has a good reputation with horror films as well. John Carpenter didn't direct this one, but he gave permission for characters and for the film to be written. Basically given Danielle Harris, who's the young actress who played Jamie Lloyd in this film. It was her very first film, and surprisingly enough, it was a horror film. So, to deal with the whole Michael Myers mask phobia, you know, the man who played Michael Myers was played by a man named George B. Wilbur. He worked a lot with Danielle Harris throughout the film, you know, getting her to understand that it's just a mask, that it's just him underneath it, because, you know, just so she wouldn't be afraid of it. She was only 8 years old at the time, so he wanted to make sure that she was comfortable with him and his acting skills. So I give that man a lot of props for basically working very close with her to get her comfortable enough to be able to do the film. Ellie Cornell plays the role of Rachel Lloyd. She is Jamie's adoptive stepsister, who pretty much is her protector throughout the entire film. The soundtrack for this movie is actually pretty good. Great job by Alan Howarth, who does a lot of the music for the Halloween films. He worked with John Carpenter on the soundtrack for Halloween 2. Really great job with the music. This takes place 10 years after the second film, after Michael Myers was left burning pretty much in the hospital after Dr. Loomis blew him up. And 10 years later, he is in a coma in Richmond Federal Sanitarium. They put him, instead of a county sanitarium, he was transferred to a federal sanitarium where escape is less likely, but he has been comatose for 10 years. So pretty much he's been in a comatose state for 10 years. I would be too if I was burnt pretty much within an inch of my life. And we're joined by Dr. Hoffman and 2 transport paramedics from Smiths Grove who are coming to transfer Michael back to Smiths Grove, where he belongs. And in the process, the 2 paramedics are talking inside the ambulance and saying he doesn't have any. One paramedic asked if he had any living relatives, and the other paramedic makes the mistake of saying, yeah, he has a niece living in his hometown, which apparently the sound of Michael knowing that he has living relatives awakens him from any sort of comatose state. And he immediately grabs that one paramedic by the head and bashes his head against the ambulance wall numerous times and sticks his thumb through his forehead, through his skull, into his brain, and does the same to the others, including the 2 paramedic drivers and the other paramedic that is in there. Because when the wreckage is found by Dr. Hoffman and Dr. Loomis, who basically is in shock that Michael has escaped again, because he went to Dr. Hoffman personally and asked, why wasn't I notified? Dr. Hoffman plays dumb about what? And Dr. Loomis, being a wise ass, says, you know damn well about what. You let them take it out of here. And, you know, Dr. Hoffman plays nothing of it, is like, oh, for Christ's sake, spare me the speech. I've listened to it for a decade. The fact that Michael Myers was a federal the fact that Michael Myers was a federal patient and a federal prisoner, therefore is subject to federal law. Which is very much true. But at the exact same time, he's been Dr. Loomis's patient for, at that point, you take the 15 years on top of the 10 years, that's 25 years of being a patient. But then again, Dr. Loomis isn't the kind of doctor that reads his memos. So therefore, it was his fault that he didn't get the memo that they were transferring him. They arrive at the crash site where the ambulance crashed after Michael did the killing. And they couldn't tell how many bodies were there because they were all chewed up. Chewed up meaning Michael Myers pretty much squeezed their bodies with his hands to a point where they looked chewed up. Or it could have been simply from the ambulance crashing and the bodies were just pretty much mutilated to unrecognition. Moving forward, Dr. Loomis pretty much drives up to Haddonfield, 4-hour drive, stops at a local gas station to get some gas, walks into the mechanics area where, well, there's nobody there. Michael was already there to get some new coveralls, goes there, kills the mechanic, where we see that Michael has what they call the X-18 mask, which is the bandaged mask. It's like gauze bandages wrapped around his head with 2 eye holes for him, I guess, to see. I don't know how he could see. He was shot in the eyes in Halloween 2, so he apparently has this ability to regenerate lost tissue. I guess he could regenerate new eyes. I don't know. No logic there. But apparently he's supposed to be pure evil, which means pure evil can't die, nor can it be destroyed. Kills the mechanic for his coveralls. He's sitting there waiting. Dr. Loomis goes there to get his gas, walks in, finds the mechanic dead, hanging from a chain by his neck, walks into the restaurant area, finds the cashier dead, or the cook dead behind the counter. Turns around, sees Michael, asks, "Why now? You waited 10 years. I knew this day would come. Don't go to Haddonfield. You want another victim? Take me, but leave those people in peace." Begs with Michael, please. Says, "God damn you," and pretty much shoots into oblivion. I don't know how you could fire that many shots and miss the dude who was standing right there. Runs out of the gas station where Michael disappeared. Michael Myers bashes out of the garage in a freaking tow truck, and Dr. Loomis shoots at him again, misses vigorously. Michael pretty much crashes into gas pumps, blowing up Dr. Loomis's car and the gas station with it, and pretty much leaves it into oblivion. Dr. Loomis is pretty much stuck hitchhiking, gets picked up by some old priest who tells him you can't kill damnation. It doesn't die like a man dies, and Dr. Loomis says he already knows that. Pretty much says that Dr. Loomis is a pilgrim, all right. He saw it on his face back there in the dust, saw it clear as breasts and blue suede shoes. Asked him if he wants a drink. They have a drink. He starts singing "Shall We Gather at the River," and pretty much transfigures into the Haddonfield frame where Dr. Loomis finally arrives. Needs to see Sheriff Brackett. Finds out he retired back in '81, moved to St. Petersburg, Florida, 3,000 miles south. Introduces the new sheriff, Ben Meeker. Total douchebag. He's played by Bo Starr, who we've all seen before in previous films, such as Goodfellas. He played Henry Hill's dad, who beats the shit out of him with a belt. Great movie. Highly recommend it. Check it out. He did a great job reprising the role as Sheriff Meeker, who has a smoking hot daughter with big bitties, who basically is very protective of and has some weird thing about dudes touching his daughter, which at her age she should be basically being around men, but none of my business about that. Some redneck fetish thing. Throughout the film, everybody discovers Michael Myers is around. Jamie's having constant nightmares of her uncle. Apparently, she is the daughter of Laurie Strode, who we later find out in the second film is Michael Myers' other sister, that was born 2 years before he was committed to Smith's Grove and was adopted by the Strodes. That's why her name was different. And so on and so forth. Jamie's pretty much afraid that her uncle's coming to get her, because everywhere she goes, she sees him, but he's not really there, up until they go to the local drugstore to buy her a Halloween costume, where, coincidentally, she picks a clown costume for her first Halloween costume, which her uncle wore when he was 6 years old when he killed his sister 25 years before. Go figure. Coincidental. Kind of feel like they were living old shit. But as she's she's posing different ways in the mirror. She poses one way and sees a vision of her uncle when he was 6 years old wearing the same costume with a bloody knife. Turns around, he's there putting on his brand new mask, which looks like shit. It looks like a doughy ass mask that had hair pasted on it. It looked terrible. They redid it. It looked like crap. It was really bad. The mask in this film was just god-awful. It's my least favorite one. Apparently they did some revision of it, made the holes bigger, and made the face pop out a bit more, and made the forehead bigger. It looked terrible. I hated it. But in this process of this film, Michael pretty much kills an electrician, the 2 people at the gas station, 4 paramedics. Sheriff Meeker's daughter catches a fatality. She gets impaled with a shotgun through a door. Sheriff deputy, a beer belly redneck. Actually, 5 rednecks. So pretty much he got a pretty good kill count in this film. And he's pretty much shot 66 times at the end of this film. Throughout the entire thing, he's relentlessly trying to kill his niece. Fails miserably because Dr. Loomis, the sheriff's department, the redneck wrecking crew as I call them, and of course Rachel, who is, as I mentioned, Jamie's stepsister, is there protecting her the entire time. Did an excellent job protecting her even to the end of the film, where they pretty much ram him with a pickup truck through a broken fence. And that's when the state police and the sheriff arrive and they blow him to oblivion, shooting him a total of 66 times with automatic weapons, a spaz shotgun, a riot gun, so on and so forth. He falls into a trench ditch. End of the film, Jamie basically puts her mask on, getting ready for her bath, grabs a pair of scissors, and stabs her stepmother, and Dr. Loomis freaks out, yelling, "No, no, no, no," as if he's just reliving this entire thing over again with a totally different child. And then when he goes into Halloween 5, The Revenge of Michael Myers. Michael lives, and this time they're ready, so to speak. So they think. This is where we find out Jamie has a telepathic connection with her uncle. So pretty much that's why she stabbed her stepmother, because Michael pretty much had this telepathic connection with Jamie that was telling her to kill her stepmother. Doesn't successfully kill her, wounds her pretty bad, stabs her pretty bad. She's wounded. Michael Myers is pretty much shown rowing down a river into some hermit shack. The hermit takes care of him for a year as he goes comatose for another year. Awakens a year later because Jamie wakes him telepathically, kills the hermit with a big rock, breaks his neck. Michael pretty much back into society, where Rachel's back living in her parents' house with her friend Tina, who's this ADHD horny freaking chick, trying to convince Rachel to stay, go to this Halloween party at the Tower Farm with their friend Sam and Spitz. Rachel's getting ready, I guess, to make up her mind. I think she's going to go to the party. Gets out of the shower, puts on a sweater. Michael's hiding in the closet. Comes out, stabs her with the scissors, and kills Rachel instantly. Pretty much stalks through the rest of the film, where this other guy named Michael, total douchebag, drives around in a pretty nice old Camaro. I think it's a Mustang or a Camaro. Can't remember what kind of car it was. It was a badass car. Loves that car more than he loves his girlfriend. Apparently loves that car more than he loves pussy. Plain and simple. Pulls around the back to go put some beer that Spitz is stealing from his boss to take to the Tower Farm party. As he's backing up, after Spitz loads up the beer, tells him, acts like a total idiot, tells Mike not to drink it all before they get there, like one dude's going to drink 6 cases of beer. The fucking dumbass. Michael comes up behind with a garden hoe, smacks it on the trunk of his car, and pretty much just grinds the heck out of the paint job, leaving 3 big scratch marks. Michael thinks he's a badass, comes out with a tire iron and says, "Hey, asshole, you want to play? Trick or treat, bitch." Michael grabs him by the throat. Michael's pretty much overpowered by this. Well, Mike, I'll call him, is overpowered by Michael as he's turning red in the face, turning blue. Michael takes the garden hose, stabs him in the face, which is where more blood and gore comes in. You can literally watch the garden hose just goes, as you can just hear the noise, it just goes right through his forehead, through his face, and he's just literally sitting there, pulsating his body, like, and he drags him away. Michael puts on this weird-looking mask that Tina got from Mike for the party that he didn't want to freaking wear, that she got for him as a present, and pretty much to keep himself incognito, playing the role as her boyfriend, driving her to the Tower Farm party. She wants to stop for a pack of cigarettes, which reluctantly Michael complies, lets her get her packets of cigarettes, where he switches masks, puts the mask back on. Michael Myers is played by Don Shanks in this film. Great actor, did a really great job with the role, worked with Jamie again because once again it's just another tall man with another scary mask. And the mask in this film, I really loved it. It looked really good. It looked like the mask aged. It looked way better than it did in Halloween 4, which was my least favorite mask. It looked really, really good. I thought it looked really freaking cool. It kind of brought the evolution to it. The hair was longer on it, which, you know, brought some age to it. Puts the mask back on, and as Tina's walking back to the car, cops start swarming the gas station, telling her to stay where she's at because Jamie had a telepathic vision that Michael was there and Tina was in danger, so they tried to save her. They get back to the clinic where they had a costume pageant. Tina makes sure that Jamie's okay, and from there on out, pretty much, Tina goes back to the party, and Spitz and Sam come up with this stupid idea to basically pull a prank on the two goofy cops that are kind of lousy. But I call them the gag cops. And, you know, Spitz comes running out chasing Sam and Tina, dressed as Michael Myers, and the cops almost shoot him. And, like, you know, Tina's like, kill me, but spare my friend. She's a virgin. And here comes Spitz through the mask. Got her phone number. Dumbest freaking prank ever. They go into the farm. Spitz and Sam pretty much lose their virginity in the barn, where Michael pretty much comes up with huge, big old, like, I guess it's a pitchfork, right through Spitz's back, kills him, fucks him dead, leaves Sam pretty much fighting back. She tries to grab the pitchfork, tries to stab Michael with it. Michael's not having anything of it, throws her aside, grabs a freaking garden scythe, a farming scythe, and boom, right across the freaking throat, pretty much almost sawing her head half off. Tina discovers the bodies, runs out. Michael pretty much turns on the car, starts chasing her, Jamie, and Billy through a field. Billy is Jamie's little crush, chasing him through pretty much an entire field of, I guess there were many Christmas trees, into a forest. Michael pretty much totals the car into a tree where Jamie thinks Michael is finally dead because all they hear is the horn. He pops out of the wreckage, almost gets Jamie. Tina jumps in front of Michael, takes a stab wound to the chest, sacrifices herself to save the two little kids. That's where the sheriff and Dr. Loomis arrive. And Jamie finally agrees to work with Dr. Loomis to capture Michael and put an end to this nightmare. They all go back to the Myers house where a bunch of cops are pretty much getting ready to ambush Michael once he arrives at the house. But Michael outsmarts the cops, is not falling for it this time, goes to the clinic to go after Billy to make all the cops think that Billy's in danger. And then Michael immediately kills the cops that are there on duty, drives back to the Myers house once all the cops leave the Myers house to go respond to that call, kills the sheriff deputy, or the state policeman that's upstairs, by hanging him outside the window by a rope ladder, and pretty much chases Jamie throughout the house where she's hiding pretty much in the laundry chute. Michael almost gets her by stabbing multiple times through the vents, doesn't get her. Dr. Loomis almost, basically at that point, finds Michael. Almost sounds like Michael's kind of comprehending what Dr. Loomis is saying, telling him that the little girl could take the rage away, the rage inside. And pretty much tries to get Michael to remember how much better he used to be. And it almost looks like Michael is complying and kind of understanding what he's saying, and like he's in pain and wants the pain to go away. And as he's saying, you don't need that knife, you don't need it, Michael pretty much tenses up, slashes him across the gut. Through the banister he goes, chases Jamie upstairs again. And as Jamie's running away, she winds up in the attic. She pretty much knows at this point there's nowhere else to run. She's done for. She lays in a coffin that was dug up by Michael, that was a coffin of a 9-year-old girl. And she's laying in there. Michael's about to kill her when she yells, "Uncle," and says, "Boogeyman," and Michael stops in his track. And she points at her eye and says, "Let me see." He takes the mask off and allows her to see his face, and pretty much tells him that he looks just like her, a human being. And in the process, Michael, I guess, with all the rage and all the I think he's like, with all the rage and all the pain he's going through, he has a tear fall from his eye, and she's like, let me take care of that. And as she's about to touch his face, you hear this growl, and he just goes into this blind rage, puts the mask back on, starts stabbing the thing, throws the coffin. She runs into Dr. Loomis, says, you want her? Here she is, and pretty much leads Michael to a trap where he pulls this rope, and a huge chain net falls on Michael, shoots him with multiple tranquilizer darts, puts an end to that. And that, believe it or not, actually, at the end of that film, when Dr. Loomis falls on top of Michael's body to make sure he is unconscious or he's dead, whatever it may be, there's a groan that you hear. Legitimately, in real life, when he does that, Donald Pleasance actually had a stroke. After beating Michael with a wooden plank, he had a stroke when he fell right on top of Michael. That wasn't cut from the movie because it was too good to cut. It was too realistic. He actually had a legitimate stroke at that moment. That movie next phases to where Michael's sitting in a cell, where Sheriff Meeker says that he's going to be, the National Guard is going to transfer him to a maximum security facility where he'll stay to the day he dies. And, you know, Jamie being Jamie says he'll never die. Now, what I kind of left out was that throughout the movie you see this man in cowboy boots and dressed in black the entire time, was following Michael around the entire film. He arrives at the police station with a automatic Tommy gun, machine gun, and dynamite, blows up the police station, blows the cell open, kidnaps Michael, and just kills all the cops. And then pretty much Jamie and Michael are never heard from again. Which bleeds into Halloween 6, The Curse of Michael Myers. This film, this was the botchery. I say this because they say it's the scariest Halloween of them all. I didn't see much difference. The mask was okay. It was an advanced version of the Halloween 4 mask, but with a little bit more age and a little bit more contrast. This film takes place, I don't know how many years after the 5th film where Michael and Jamie disappeared. It opens up with Jamie giving birth to a child that apparently is Michael's child. Because I guess the whole concept behind Michael's rage and his power is an ancient rune called Thorn. A cult, if you may. A Celtic cult known as Thorn. Pretty much it's a curse that's passed down from one child, basically makes them immortal. They have to kill off their entire family in order to save another tribe. I don't know how that works and how that's even remotely explained, but that's just how it's explained. And this baby is Michael's final sacrifice before the curse is passed on to a new family, which means Michael will die eventually. And I'm assuming once the curse wears off, he'll live for probably a couple more years until all the injuries he sustained over the years while being inflicted with the curse himself takes its toll and takes his life. It pretty much surrounds around Karen Strode, who basically is the niece of Robert Strode, who was Laurie Strode's adopted father. No, Mason Strode, I'm sorry. It was Mason Strode, who is Laurie's adopted stepfather. His brother pretty much finally sold the Myers house to himself. He wound up buying it and living in it with his family, who is an abusive SOB because as soon as Karen stands up to him, he smacks her across the mouth. Isn't accepting much of his daughter because she disappeared for a while. Had a bastard child with some dude who's never brought up. It's her son Danny, who basically is living in Michael's old bedroom. And he's pretty much hearing the same voices that Michael was hearing at 6 years old, which means Danny was destined to be the next one inflicted with the curse, which doesn't happen. Michael winds up killing Karen's stepdad by pretty much electrocuting him to where his head explodes. Her mother by literally slashing her with a fire axe, or a hatchet, whichever you want to call it. Killing her brother. I forgot his name. Don't care. It's irrelevant. stabbing him, or actually strangling or slicing his throat after getting out of the shower, killing his girlfriend Beth after stabbing her numerous times, and Jamie's baby's pretty much in the hands of Tommy Doyle from the first film, who has been living across the street from the Myers house. He's been obsessed with Michael Myers since he was a kid. Pretty much trying to help Karen understand what's going on around her, why he's being the creep that he is. But it's also introduced Dr. Loomis is still alive. Years later, retired, living in the middle of freaking nowhere, and is approached by his old friend Terrence Wynn, who was actually the director of Smith's Grove, Warren County Sanitarium, who's there to ask Loomis to come back to Smith's Grove. He has chosen a successor to come back to replace him once he leaves. Dr. Loomis declines, but Dr. Wynn is determined to have Dr. Loomis come back, which finally gives Dr. Loomis all the files and everything on Michael Myers, which in the process of telling the secretary about the files needed, she lets Dr. Wynn know that, oh, Jamie Lloyd's body was found this morning. Also turns out to find out she gave birth as well. Dr. Loomis is concerned with that. Dr. Wynn looked a bit suspicious to me when he found out about that. Well, like, where's the baby? Tommy Doyle finds the baby after Jamie's killed, protects the baby throughout the entire film. Michael pretty much goes around hacking up the entire hospital and everything else. They find themselves at Warren County Sanitarium when Dr. Wynn is revealed to be the man in black who's been protecting Michael for all these years because he wants control of the power of Thorn. Michael pretty much kills all the hospital staff, which is part of his final sacrificial needs. In the process, Tommy figures out the power of Thorn, conducts a ritual, and stops Michael in his tracks by simply saying the words Sam Hain while standing in the middle of this pentagram that he made, which is like the Thorn symbol surrounded by rocks. He created all of that, put that together, and as Michael grabs him by the throat, he just says Sam Hain, and Michael stops. Completely frozen. Dr. Wynn finds him, says, "What have they done to you, Michael?" Michael switches places with Dr. Wynn. That's when Dr. Loomis finds him, lying on the ground thinking it's Michael, saying, "Michael, it's over, it's over." And as the mask comes off, it's Dr. Wynn. Dr. Wynn grabs Dr. Loomis by the wrist and says, "Michael's gone. It's your game now, Dr. Loomis." And what happens is Dr. Wynn passes the curse of Thorn onto Dr. Loomis. The Thorn symbol appears on his wrist. And all you hear is Dr. Loomis yelling at the top of his lungs, I'm guessing in pain. And then pretty much finally calms down. His eyes widen. He stares at the Thorn symbol as if like he was basically feeling really good from the power. And all you see is this man in black figure walking away, which is Michael with the hat and the trench coat. And then it fades out. This movie is ranked last for me. This was by far the most dumbest movie I've ever seen. It took the topic way off. It took the concept of the movie way off. It was bad. The story didn't make, from Halloween 1, 2, 4, and 5 made sense because they were all packed together. This is where they went way off topic, way off concept. This is rated last. It's number 10. Halloween 20 years later. Pretty much this concept takes place 20 years after the first murders of Halloween's 1 and 2. Laurie's pretty much in hiding out in Southern California. She's the head of a school, a private school, a prep school if you want to call it. And she's completely a full-blown alcoholic with a son that goes to the school. And she's constantly in fear that Michael's going to find her. I'm not even going to go into the concept of the film. All I know is that the review on it is what I'm going to go about. Now, Jamie Lee Curtis returns. It was her idea to do this film. She went to John Carpenter. She called him up and says, we should do a film 20 years after the first two. He kind of rolled his eyes and was just like, well, we just did all these films, this and that, so what are we going to do about those? So he had to figure out a way to kind of like draw viewers away from the fact that Halloween 4 and 5 and 6 took place and just make it look like it went from Halloween 1, 2, and then 20 years later. It didn't work out that way. Michael Myers was played by 3 different actors because there was 3 different stuntmen who had their own styles, and Carpenter couldn't choose which one of the 3 stuntmen he wanted for the final build, so he used all 3. The mask itself was awful. It was worse than Halloween 4's. I hated it. It was shitty. LL Cool J played in this film. He played a pretty decent role in it. He was playing the role of a security guard at the gate, and he was also a book writer apparently. And he did really well with the role, especially when he got shot. You know, he got the bullet grazed and whatnot. There wasn't really many kills in the film. Michael killed, he killed 2 teenagers. He killed the nurse from the first film, who was much older. She was also, you know, Dr. Loomis's caretaker. And then he killed Laurie Strode's boyfriend, and then 2 students and a paramedic, which he basically, it was all in the pursuit of Laurie. Laurie finally decided she had enough of being afraid. She broke the gate so there was no escape, and she pretty much pursued Michael in the school, had a standoff with him, stabbed him several times with a knife, and over the balcony he went through all the lunch tables down below. And that's where pretty much he was pretty much laying there till the paramedics arrived and the fire department and the police. Michael, kind of like in a deleted scene, awoken when a paramedic was pretty much checking him out, crushed his larynx, and took his paramedic uniform and swapped outfits with the paramedic, who awakens in a coroner's van that Laurie hijacks because she wants to make sure Michael is actually going to die, and she wants to make sure his body's disposed of properly. The paramedic wakes up in confusion. He can't talk because his larynx are crushed, so Laurie's under the assumption it's Michael. He gets impaled by the van when they go off of a cliff. She chops his head off. Now, most people didn't know that wasn't Michael. They got his head chopped off. That's what people are saying. Well, the film series should have ended. He was decapitated. He has no head. Well, nobody knew up until Halloween Resurrection. Laurie was then admitted to a sanitarium after decapitating the wrong man. She killed the wrong person when forensics came about. She was deemed psychiatrically unstable. But she knew that Michael was still out there. She'd watch out the window constantly. She was diagnosed with the extreme dissociative disorder. Doctors thought that she was a suicide threat because they found her on the roof more than once. But she was actually setting a trap for Michael. When Michael finds her, chases her up to the roof. She catches Michael in a trap where he's hanging by his ankle off the roof, telling Michael that he's failed because she's not afraid of him, but asks him, what about you? Are you afraid of me? Are you afraid to die, Michael? And when she's about to cut the rope, he kind of like pulls a stunt where he's kind of like freaking out, making it look like, are you sure it's me and not somebody else? And kind of tricks her into checking who's under the mask because she wants to be sure it's actually him. And Michael pulls a fast one, stabs her in the back, and off the roof she goes. Laurie's dead. First kill of the movie. Shortly before that, he kills 2 security guards in the basement in the boiler room. Gives his knife to this serial killer fanatic who basically studies serial killers, makes masks of serial killers, goes into like this whole spiel about Michael Myers' background, all of that. Moves forward into the movie where Busta Rhymes, who plays a role of Freddy, who is basically a director for Dangertainment Studios, and they're basically having a live webcam show inside the Myers house. They're going to have a bunch of college students attached to webcams going through the house of Michael Myers and going through all the stuff in there. In the process, not knowing that Michael still lives there, everybody gets killed one by one. And everybody thinks it's just a bunch of special effects when it's really Michael actually killing these people and people are actually dying. And in the process of all that, Michael was pretty much just hacking, slashing everybody. Oh, excuse me. And like, in most brutal ways possible. And this girl named Sarah is the sole survivor. And her, I guess you can call him her pen pal boyfriend, Deckard, is pretty much guiding her through the house, where Michael's at, how to escape, this and that. They wind up in the garage, where she has a final showdown with Michael and starts attacking him with a chainsaw. Garage catches on fire. Busta Rhymes, who was assumed dead after being stabbed in the shoulder 4 times, busts through the door, says, "Trick or treat, motherfucker!" Starts whooping Michael Myers' ass with some freaking like Bruce Lee freaking karate shit. Finally hits him with a big karate kick, which gets Michael tangled up in a bunch of live wires. He gets electrocuted, gets caught in the fire. Fire department, every ambulances, police show up. He's in a body bag. Sarah's like, "I want to see his face." And the fireman's like, "All right, warn you, miss. Not a pretty sight." Opens body bag. Michael's crispy as fuck in there. And as they're getting interviewed, you know, they're asking like, you know, what's it like? It's like, what's your opinion on Michael Myers? Busta Rhymes says the most killer line of the whole thing and made me crack up. It's like, Michael Myers ain't a sound bite. Michael Myers is a killer shark. Baggy ass overalls. Kills everything and everyone he ever comes across. That's it. That's all. And then he sees his body in the body bag. He's like, "Looking a little crispy over there, Mikey. Like a chicken fried motherfucker. May you never ever rest in peace." Michael's then transported to the mortuary, where the mortician's pretty much finishing up with corpses that she's been brought. The guy bringing him the corpse says, "Yeah, it's your lucky day. We got a celebrity here." He's like, "Ooh, let me get my autograph book," she says. He's like, "I'm not kidding. It's Michael Myers. Send me a copy of that autograph." As soon as she opens the bag, she's picking like the dead skin fragments off of it out of nowhere. His eyes just widen and wakes up. Michael Myers is still alive, and the movie goes dead. That's pretty much the review on the first 11 films, guys. I think that's all 11 of them. Well, I'm actually only reviewing the first few movies, so those are the first 8. But that's pretty much it, guys. That is my review on Halloween's 1 through Resurrection. Drop a like if you have not already. Subscribe to the channel for more content just like this. If you like these reviews, if you like these rants, hit that subscribe button and that notification bell for more stuff just like this. Check out the links in the description down below for all the channels that I'm associated with, my friends and family down below. Check out my merch store for Revelation Studios merch. There's hats, t-shirts, hoodies, coffee cups, mouse pads, all that cool stuff there. Also then down in the description are the links to our Twitter page, Facebook, Instagram, all that cool stuff. With all that said being, guys, thank you for hanging out today. Thank you for checking out this video. Please, once again, like, the content if you like it and you want to see more stuff like this. Subscribe to the channel if you'd like the notification bell to go off for more content just like that, or whenever I am streaming any of your favorite games and titles. Be much appreciated. I love hearing from you guys. Leave a comment down below. If you have any comments or questions or concerns, drop right there in that comment section below, and we will see you guys in the next one.